Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Rotoworld Football Show. I am Patrick Daugherty, joined as always this Thursday by Kyle Dvorchak, Denny Carter, Patrick Kerrane. We're going to break down all of Week 14's games, which for some reason features 6 byes. Some of the teams on bye have already been eliminated from the playoffs, so not really sure what purpose this serves. But we're going to talk about the 24 teams that are playing after Thursday night. Hopefully, we got a barn burner between Baker Mayfield and the Las Vegas Raiders on Jeff Bezos' Amazon Football Variety Hour. But speaking of Variety Hours, for Denny on a different podcast that he's on, apparently did a Christmas song draft. Yeah. And Denny, first off, no Zoomers ever heard of Foghat. And no Boomer even knew that Foghat had a Christmas song. How could you have a Foghat Christmas song end up on your list?
Really, I was trying to be as big a snob as possible by putting the Foghat Christmas song, which is excellent. Okay, everybody should check that out either during this podcast or right after. I was trying to bring that to people's attention. You know, it deserves to be highlighted. So I took it in order to catapult it into its proper recognition, and I make no apologies for that.
Wow. Kerrane and Kyle, you don't seem quite as into music as maybe Denny and I are. Do you guys know the huge Foghat hit, one of the most iconic classic rock songs by any chance?
I know the name. What was their big hit?
Slow Ride.
Oh yeah, my band in college actually covered that song. So
really,
Oh wow.
We used to do Zoomers such know that from Guitar Hero. We know a lot of classic rock.
That one you know it from. Okay, millennials know.
My dad indoctrinated me into classic rock, so I do have a bit of domain knowledge there. But people of my generation know one song from almost every famous like 80s-ish rock band because Guitar Hero would take one song or two maybe from every famous rock band. So we know the 5 buttons on a guitar, the standard 5 buttons of guitar you press during every one of those songs.
What Slow Ride has sold a huge amount of used cars, man. That's the ultimate used car song, I think.
What was the movie from the 90s that had Slow Ride in it? It's a movie about the 70s. The guys, the football.
Dazed and Confused?
Dazed and Confused. That's where millennials know Slow Ride from. And so that we covered it because it's sort of nostalgic for, not for the time the song is actually from, but from like watching Dazed and Confused in high school and stuff. So, but the thing about Slow Ride is no one wants to hear that. When you go to Slow Ride and then you go back to the verse, everyone's bummed out. They're like, there's more. There's more to this song.
They're like pressing the fast forward button on their phone. Skip, come on, skip.
Well, what folks don't realize is that the radio version is cut way short of the studio. The studio version is 9 minutes long.
I say it's like 8 or 9 minutes long, I think. And wow, yeah, I'm not really sure. Bob Dylan can maybe get away with 9 verses. I'm not really sure Slow Ride
can get away with
9
verses.
Yeah,
it starts on a chorus. So the first verse, you're like, too many verses.
Yeah. So maybe Desolation Row, but I'm not sure about Slow Ride.
I wanted to also just mention that I drafted in this Christmas song draft. I took the Bowie Bing Crosby Peace on Earth Little Drummer Boy song. Okay, obviously the best
iconic YouTube video
song. And also the Lou Rawls song called Christmas Is. I recommend people check out these songs that are actually good. The difference between the songs I drafted and other Christmas songs is that the ones I drafted are good.
The only Christmas music that matters, because really the only Christmas music that matters is the Christmas music that you're nostalgic for. And my family listened to a lot of Mannheim Steamroller. They threw down on the synths. They threw down.
Dude, Mannheim Steamroller is the actual worst.
What? I thought you were saying the actual GOAT.
No, the actual worst. I'm sorry. Wow. It's like truly abysmal.
No, it's the best Muzak. It is. I'll admit it's Muzak, but it's the best Muzak ever made.
You know what else was terrible? Trans-Siberian Orchestra. Just horrific.
It is.
Horrific. I went to a concert when I was like 18. Literally, me and my friends fell asleep during the concert. It's the most boring music possible.
Wow. So this whole conversation is just giving me low-key stress for I'm realizing like I'm about to hear All I Want for Christmas Is You like 1,000 times over the next 3 weeks. Yeah. So that's
you can even to me it's like, is that even a Christmas song? I mean, I know there's some bells in it, but
All I Want for what?
All I Want doesn't sound like a Christmas song is what I'm saying. Like Since they throw in some, it's like a normal pop song, and they like put some bells on it.
That's fair. I get what you're saying. Is that it like you could replace the word Christmas with like my birthday, and it would sound different. But the bells are iconically.
The
Christmas.
hook is literally all I want for Christmas to you.
You say tomato, I say tomato. And you say Minnesota Vikings, I say Detroit Lions. Everyone's favorite 5-7 team. The Lions host the 10-2 Vikings as surprising home favorites. Patrick Kerrane. Detroit may be the most fascinating team in fantasy right now, but let's begin with DeAndre Swift. Denny and I declared him back earlier this week. Were we correct?
Well, you want to talk about correct. How about saying upside of 50% snap share on this podcast last week, and then he had 51% snap share. So that was a decent call that, whatever, overly specific, didn't really help anyone, but whatever. I think now, is he back? No, he's not back. 51% snap share is not good. Not good snap share.
Hold on. If 60% is good, how is 51% not good?
60% isn't good. 60% is acceptable.
60% is the acceptable threshold, but that doesn't make like 51 totally unacceptable in my opinion.
It's not good. We can't say he's back. It's better than what we've been dealing with, but we're so broken by this DeAndre Swift experience. We're going 51%. He's back.
He is.
Now he's not back, but he does have a chance to be back. I think at this point we could see a further increase of snap share. Justin Jackson still around 20% of snaps last week, so maybe we get him out of there, get him off the field. He still wasn't off the field. Jamal Williams was
2 drops, 30%. By the way. Justin Jackson, like I don't know what purpose this is.
It's crazy. So if we get Justin Jackson moving down to 10% or below, and Jamal Williams stays around 30, then we could get DeAndre Swift to 60% or above, and then we're talking. Now, I think he was back on the injury report this week, so none of this is going to happen.
He was.
Instead, he's going to be back at 40%.
It scares me. It scares me. I'm in the same boat as you. Like 50% is good. We're in the right direction, but we want to get there. We want to pour gasoline on the fire, and instead, Dan Campbell sees him as he limits him in practice. The first day, he's like, "We're peaking. This is it. We're never going higher." Like you just feel the desperation of the situation already.
It's just a little rep management after 18 touches for the first time since week 1. He's not hurt, right?
Rep management. I mean, rep management has been his whole season.
I was going to say the rep management will continue to Sunday.
Are you calling him a top 20 running back? I mean, I am.
Yeah.
No.
What? Are you kidding?
Come on,
man.
Come on, Kerrane.
I haven't dug around at the running back 18. Who are? Give me some names.
Well, the game.
Running back is real. Yeah, we usually only play the game on Tuesday.
How about Swift or Fournette, Kerrane?
I'd do Swift.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
So maybe it's top 20 for me. It's
look.
gross.
I have my rankings open. I'm not scrambling to try to find them.
Kerrane, we play this game every Tuesday on the ranking show, literally, because I usually do my rankings Tuesday after the show or Wednesday early morning. So they they toy with me to try and figure out if I can back my takes with my I would never rank so-and-so as an RB2, and then they named their RB2s, and I look like an idiot. Now you get that experience, though. Congratulations. Go ahead.
So DeAndre Swift or Miles Sanders, quote unquote.
I would go Sanders.
Man. DeAndre Swift or Najee Harris?
I would go Swift.
All right. We're Najee Harris, or excuse me, the last one, DeAndre Swift or the GOAT, Isaiah Pacheco?
I'd go Swift.
See, he's an RB2, folks. There's 6 teams on bye. I don't know if you heard this. Anybody else talking about this?
He's touchdown dependent, though, don't you think? I mean, it's just hard for him to do anything unless he.
I do think one reason why I think the 51% snap share is because he really is getting every third down. Let's throw to DeAndre Swift. He had a season high in receiving yards even last week. They left him in the moment I was back. It was transcendental meditation, euphoria. Was when he went down to the 1 yard line, and instead of taking him off the field, they went hurry up and let him carry the ball.
That was cool.
You ascended to the astral plane at that moment.
I did. That's how I knew.
I would love a video of that. I'm just him leaving.
I'll just be honest. I saw God. And he told me he's back.
By the way, teams have targeted running backs at a pretty high rate against the Vikings. The Vikings have given up the 5th most running back receptions. So it's happening, folks. Swift is happening.
This is a great game environment, so you have that going for you.
Really, really good game environment, which is one of the reasons why Denny, for some reason, pumped up DJ Chark on the waiver show. It's been 3 days, Denny. Do you stand by the DJ Chark love? It helps that there are 6 teams on bye.
I know you want nothing more than for me to pull back here and to say, no, I'm out on DJ Chark. But first of all, I was on DJ Chark last Thursday, and look what happened. He had a fine game, wide receiver 3 game, and what else can you ask for from DJ Chark? But yeah, last week Chark had 108 air yards, leading the Lions against the Jaguars. That accounted for 45% of the team's air yards, averaged at the target of 18. So it's the same old DJ Chark sort of thing. Saw 6 targets. That was second on the team behind St. Brown. Hey, look, the Vikings are a pass funnel, like one of the most extreme pass funnels in the league. They've been gouged by outside receivers all season. Chark ran about 86% of his routes last week from the boundary. So I'm not saying St. Brown is going to be, face anything difficult here. He's still going to see 12, 15 targets, but Chark, I think Chark's in a really good spot. And like Kerrane said, great game environment.
The Lions have like such a weird amount of outside receivers now for like being a team that doesn't really throw deep that much. They got Josh Reynolds, Jameson Williams, DJ Chark, but DJ Chark does seem to be leading.
Josh Reynolds' agent thanks you for throwing him in the conversation.
He does. Yeah. I mean, he is still on the Lions. Josh Reynolds, I believe he had 3 catches for 19 yards last Sunday. Kyle, we're talking about another Lion. Oh, wait, he's been traded. TJ Hawkinson. We gotta get that out of the pod. Now I just made myself laugh, and I'm gonna go into a coughing fit with my virus.
Well, you mute yourself. I'll take over talking about TJ Hawkinson.
He hasn't bettered 43 yards in 3 straight weeks. Were we too quick to crown him in his new home?
I don't think so, because his peripherals have not changed over that past 3 weeks. A 21% target share, a third of the team's looks in the red zone, 85% of the team snaps, and I believe that 3-week stretch of admittedly like very unexciting games starts when they got bludgeoned by Dallas. So 85% of the team snaps and strong target share metrics include a game where they didn't even finish out with their starters. The Lions also give up the most fantasy points to inline tight ends, where Hawk gets most of his reps. No concerns. This looks like a great spot, frankly.
I'm gonna have the slow ride chorus in my head for I think the next 7
years. Me too.
I'm singing in my head right now.
I am too. I didn't even realize I was singing in my head. It was like just sort of in the background on the very low volume.
That's an all-time banger. Do we have anything to say about Jameson Williams? He played like 5 snaps. Just nothing doing for redraft this year still for Jameson Williams, correct?
That's right. I would note that I think this is like a very good game environment where like I think it is the type of game where you're comfortable rolling out a piece like DJ Chark or Hawkinson or whatever, because there's like a couple different ways where this game can get there. The Lions against the Jacksonville Jaguars had a 12% pass rate over expected, 15% on 1st and 10. The Lions have generally been a run first team this year. The Jaguars have a terrible pass defense, but like to attack them like that shows a lot of confidence in their passing game. I feel like the Lions can get pushed by the Vikings here. They have a bad defense. The Vikings have been pass first, but like Denny said, the Vikings have been a pass funnel, and the Lions have been attacking pass funnels all of a sudden.
Man, the Jags looked just utterly horrific. Their defense last week might as well have not even been on the field. The fading New York Giants host the Screaming Eagles, Denny, as touchdown home underdogs. What is going on here other than Darius Slayton cooking the fantasy books? Didn't see this game. I know he got his 58 yards, but I heard he might have had a drop or 2.
Yeah, I mean, the dot that I saw had a pretty bad drop last week against the Commanders. But yeah, so I'll just get through this as fast as possible because this is such an ugly game for fantasy. Obviously, you're starting all your Eagles. A horrible passing spot for Daniel Jones against the tough Philadelphia secondary. He could get there with rushing, he said. Question mark.
But I believe the Eagles, they do allow the fewest quarterback fantasy points.
It is a very ugly spot. But so Daniel Jones has accounted for 30% of the Giants rushing attempts since week 10. Last week he had 12 rushes against the Commanders. Yeah, you heard that right.
Yikes. What are they doing? I mean, I guess they don't have any receivers. But.
Yeah, right. And then Slayton is the only wide receiver you're playing with any confidence. 23% of the team's targets and 40% of the team's air yards. I should say very limited air yards since week 5. The Eagles are a run funnel. I will say that. Okay, like teams have really leaned toward the run. So I would suspect that Brian Daboll and the Giants would like to establish it. I don't know if that's really going to happen here. Also, with run stuffer Jordan Davis back in week 13 against the Titans, the Eagles allowed the league's lowest rush EPA. I'm getting back in the trenches, guys.
Well, Denny's heard of a run stuffer. Big deal.
I'm first and foremost, I watch offensive and defensive line.
I think Kyle must have texted you this while you were speaking.
He did. He's feeding. I have an earpiece. Yeah. And also, Saquon Barkley's not really seeing enough target volume to stay super relevant if game script turns sour here. So I'm a little worried, but obviously you're starting him. Miles Sanders, just real quick, and I'll be done. Miles Sanders, Giants allow the 12th highest rate of positive rush plays, and 40% of the yardage gained against the Giants this season has come on the ground. That's the 10th highest rate in the league. Of course, Miles Sanders is averaging about 19 fantasy points with a touchdown, with at least one touchdown this season. He's averaging 7 fantasy points without a touchdown, so he's super touchdown dependent.
Saquon Barkley is only averaging 2.8 yards per carry over his past 3 games. There's only one 10-yard plus carry in that stretch. Seems to be breaking down a little bit. And the Giants, I believe, allow over 5 yards per carry. Kerrane, seemed like you wanted to say something.
Well, all the guy does is either rip long runs or run into the line. So I think it's a little unfair to say he's breaking down. I mean,
not breaking. No. Did I say that? I mean, he's just a little tired. Tired.
That sounds like you rephrasing the same thing you just said, but in a way that doesn't sound as bad.
Do you mean tired from life because he's old? That's
he is very old. He's for running back. He's elderly. So
I think ride it out with Barkley is kind of the boom bust guy. Pat, I wanted to set you up for stat of the week because normally I do stat of the week, but I checked your Twitter feed and I did not see a tweet that I expected to see. So I want to set you up here for stat of the week.
Well, I mean, Darius Slayton, of course, blowing by 58 yards again in week 13, something he has now done in 7 straight contests, I believe. No, 6. And Jalen Waddle, of course, did not reach 58 yards last week where he injured his fibula. A very weird injury. So Darius Slayton is now the one true 58-yard king. Again, even though I heard had some horrific drops in week 13 and was, quote, tilting Giants fans out of their gourds. But he's 58 yards. Like the sun rises and Darius Slayton gets 58 yards every week, at least. So, stat of the week, stat of the century, to be honest. Lock it in. Kyle, for the second year in a row, a scuffling Ravens team has lost Lamar Jackson at the most important moment of the season. Set the scene for the road-tripping Ravens in Pittsburgh, and then take us through what exactly is going on with the Steelers receivers.
Yeah, the Steelers receivers, the problem is Kenny Pickett is not good. At least not right now. Maybe it will be later, but has not been good this year.
4 touchdowns and 8 interceptions.
Yeah, that's a low number of one of those and too many of the other one. So, I mean, since the Chase Claypool trade, we haven't even gotten this boon in production from anyone. Deontay leads the team's wide receivers as the wide receiver 48 since then. George Pickens isn't far behind him. Deontay Johnson's efficiency in terms of yards per target is up from where it was to start the year. And it's at 6 points something in the past few weeks. So it's the regression is happening and he's regressing to still being a useless fantasy player. Pickens doesn't see enough of the ball. Pat Freiermuth, on the other hand, since the Chase Claypool trade, has actually kind of come to life. A 24% target share, a 28% air yard share. He's top. You could call him a top 5 tight end. Tight end is not a great position. It doesn't.
You want to hear a Darius Slayton stat on Pat Freiermuth? He has bettered 57 yards receiving in 4 of his past 6 games.
Unbelievable. Now, is that cherry picked?
It's facts.
Is there a reason you chose that yardage number?
Yeah, it's 57.
No, I mean, it's normally if I notice a weird stat like this, it's like, wow, Pat Freiermuth has actually been surprisingly consistent, and it's never just 60 because 58, so I'm not trying to put it out there it's just interesting, folks. It's interesting.
It was fascinating, in fact, and
Kyle,
on the other side, go ahead.
I don't know that's far enough. Who's the tight end 3 if it's not Freiermuth?
Hawkinson.
Yeah, I think I like Hawkinson this week. I'd take him.
We crowned him too quickly. Hawkinson.
No. It's a great spot. He's going to go crazy.
Yeah, the thing is Hawkinson plays for a
sorry,
good
I don't
team.
mean this week. I mean going forward.
To me, it's still Hawkinson. Hawkinson plays for a good team that throws the ball well, and Freiermuth doesn't. His team's bad, and they don't.
He's the number 1 receiver on his team.
He is the number 1 receiver on his team. I think that's the reason it's a conversation. I kind of agree. It's you choose your own adventure with these non-Travis Kelce tight ends. So I don't have a strong argument against it. His volume is really good. Like you said, he's arguably the number 1 receiver. Other side of the ball, As you know, Tyler Huntley is stepping in. He stepped in 4 games last year, averaged 9.5 rush attempts. Not a bad streaming option, though I really struggle to see how this team moves the ball efficiently through the air. They were struggling to do so under Lamar Jackson since they lost Rashad Bateman. The only upside is in 6 Huntley appearances, because he's played on at least 80% of the snaps 6 times in the past year and a half, an 8-catch 92 and 0.5 touchdown receiving line average. So you're still firing him up. He's still a tight end too.
Yeah, he does what backup quarterbacks should do, which is lock on their best pass catcher. Tyler Huntley definitely got the memo there. And he's not like the kind of dual threat that's going to win a week single-handedly the way Lamar Jackson does, but he is also a legitimate dual threat.
He's the one who won't lose you the week because he gets 2.5 points and gets benched, right? He's getting like 30 on the ground probably. He's like Daniel Jonesian in that way.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. The National Broadcasting Corporation is proud to bring you Dolphins-Chargers this Sunday evening at 8:20 p.m. Eastern. Danny, there's a lot going on with both these teams, so let's start with the Chargers. Is it time to give up hope of a passing game breakout?
I mean, does it count if they're just like getting there on massive, crazy volume? I mean, because it's not efficient and it's not pretty, but Justin Herbert over his past 3 games has 280, 275, and 335 yards. Of course, this is with him dropping back like 50 plus times, but we'll take it. I think, the Chargers have been over their expected pass rate in 6 of their past 7 games. They're playing against a pass funnel Miami defense here. I think Herbert is almost guaranteed to drop back 40 times here. The problem, of course, and this is the breakout part that you're talking about, is that Herbert is 26th among quarterbacks in average depth of target. That's right around.
Man, they've made him Oregon Herbert.
His receivers have had a role in that, or his last.
They have, but I mean,
I definitely think like you can still scheme even if they're not high. Like throwing to Mike Williams is a higher probability target than throwing to DeAndre Carter when it's 15 yards downfield. But you should frankly still be trying with how it's going. The upside here is that Mike Williams back-to-back, it looks like limited sessions. Like they should be getting him back. I don't want to jump the gun, but it's a good start to the week for him.
But Justin Herbert has averaged under 6 yards per attempt in 5 of his past 7 starts.
Yeah, it's ugly. Yeah. But I mean, I feel pretty good. This is a really good environment. Like I have no issues with starting Herbert or Keenan Allen or Mike Williams if he plays.
Mike Williams, we want you back, Mike.
I mean, you just have to hope that he doesn't make a diving catch.
Yeah, seriously.
Immediately breaks his back.
We give the Chargers coaches a lot of grief. I think rightfully so. But I mean,
are you shifting blame to the player?
I'm shifting blame to the front office.
Oh, damn it.
To the front office. If Mike Williams, a totally fine NFL receiver, goes out and it's over. Like, right. How is there not additional weapons in this offense? You've known for years now that Herbert's the guy you got to build around. Build around him.
Yeah, they were kind of like the Chiefs for last year. I think it was a correct narrative, where the Chiefs had the 2 elite weapons in Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, but badly needed that third weapon. Their offense was just discombobulated all year. I thought the Chargers were that offense this year, and they didn't do it. And Josh Palmer and DeAndre Carter get 9 targets a game now.
Yeah, they were in like a draft CeeDee Lamb, even though you have Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup situation, and they did not do the thing in draft CeeDee Lamb, and now they're being punished for it.
They are being punished for it. Kerrane, we were all punished for having faith in Jeff Wilson last week. He had one touch against the San Francisco 49ers. What happened in the Dolphins' backfield? Was it a game script aberration? Will they bounce back? Jeff Wilson or Raheem Mostert against the Chargers' awful run defense.
Well, this was the second time that you saw enlightenment.
I know. I almost went with the exact same line. I have a virus fever right now. I'm just going to assume.
I mean, what happened? It was. I think is a little crazy. Like Raheem Mostert, 61% of snaps. Jeff Wilson, 37%, just 1 carry. So the thing that's tough about this, normally I would be like, okay, I guess it's Mostert. Like, I'm not going to ignore that they gave Mostert like a 60-40 split here, a little more. But like, I think McDaniel is sharp, and Wilson's been way better than Mostert this season. He's running back 6th in rush yards over expected per attempt, running back 18 in success rate. Mostert ranks running back 43 in both of those metrics. He's been real bad. Maybe it was like related to the matchup somehow. I think it's going to be a split. I think, last week's usage showed us that. but we should see more rushing attempts against a weak Chargers run defense this week. So you're not going to get one carry for either of these guys. And if
Challenge
it's a
accepted,
split,
by the way.
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
If it's a split, you want Wilson, I think. He's just been so much better.
I agree with that take. And I don't know, maybe Jeff Wilson, left the game a few weeks ago. I don't think he was on the injury report last week. Maybe he's still a little banged up. Maybe they just still trust Raheem Mostert more as the passing down back, and they were in trail mode basically the entire 60 minutes against the 49ers. Not like hugely, but they were behind most of that game. And it is weird to be like, oh, yeah, just going to ignore the guy getting one carry and rank him as an RB2 again. But I think that pretty much is what we have to do. Kyle, that's what you got to do. Kyle, what is the state of the Dolphins receiver core? Jalen Waddle, again, listed with a fibula injury. Does that mean like a deep bruise or something?
That was my guess, right? Because obviously, like, it's not a break or a bad fracture, but they do specify that it's the bone. So my guess
I've never
was, like,
seen that before.
Yeah, right. I was like very confused by that too. And the fact that they were listening to just leg. Like, yeah, it's generally just like his leg up until then. I guess it makes sense now. So that was my like very normie guess, was like, I guess he's just like very bruised, but he was limited in practice to start the week. He looks fine as far as a player dealing with a classic fibula injury can be. I mean, it's been kind of tough sledding over the past few weeks. Just really haven't gotten massive. I mean, last week obviously was very rough. He had like one catch on 5 targets, but he left that game, so you can somewhat excuse it. But over the past 3 weeks, when he's been, quote, struggling, still has a 30% air yard share, a 21% target share. He's been frankly underperforming. He is the 5th worst receiver in fantasy points over expectation over the past 3 weeks. But his role indicates that he's still like a very solid second option for this team. And that's with, I believe that was with them blowing out the Texans a few weeks ago. And then he missed a bunch of snaps last week. He was ruled questionable and came back. So he's missing time, and his role still looks pretty solid. So I'm not concerned. If anything, this looks like a pretty strong bounce back spot for a player who we were kind of counting on boom games consistently early in the season. I don't want to write these past 3 weeks off as a complete aberration, but I do think they're less of the norm than should be expected.
Yeah, before he got injured last week. Again, it's just what the lowest number from the sample size was. That's why he went for it. He had cleared 66 yards in 6 straight games. So he had been providing a pretty nice fantasy floor, Mr. Jalen Waddle. And ceiling's got to be there. The Chargers, man, what a dispiriting team the Chargers are.
Something I didn't realize about Waddle until, I guess, last week or the week before is that he's only running like 23% of his routes from the slot. Like I didn't realize that. I realized that they had shifted him out of the full-time slot role, but like he's almost full-time outside receiver role. I think that's affected him in not such a great way. Tyreek Hill's running way more slot routes. Trent Sherfield is running a lot of slot routes. So the easy stuff is not there for him as it was last year.
Yeah, it does look like they've like early in the season, it was like 1A, 1B maybe between him. And I think they've like clearly and understandably settled on Tyreek Hill as like their best receiver. He is the guy we scheme stuff to, including that slot work. And Waddle is still good and still gets a lot of work, but he's not the guy who like every game plan is designed to get him the ball as much.
Yeah.
Not at all tilted by Trent Sherfield scoring a 75-yard touchdown.
I'm not either, because you know what? I looked up who's running the most slot routes for the Dolphins because I wanted to see if I could get some DFS exposure. The answer was Mike Gesicki. He leads the team in slot routes. So
he doesn't even play like half the snaps. That's insane. Like every snap he takes is
right. So I thought, oh, well, this is sneaky. I put him in a couple, and then Sherfield catches a 75-yard touchdown that start the game.
I've seen better applications of the franchise tag than Mike Gesicki by the Dolphins.
Well, you see, the tight end franchise tag is actually kind of cheap, right? So when you're playing him 20 snaps a game, it's really worth it.
Yeah, I've seen better applications of the tight end. That's all I'll say. Patrick Kerrane, you good? You good, folks?
Good. Just reset the router.
Just reset the router because now you're going to need to set the scene for Patriots-Cardinals. Mired in identity crisis, the Pats arrive in Arizona as 1.5-point road favorites. Neither one of these teams seem to know what to do with their passing attacks. Patrick, take us through it.
Yeah, so Kyler Murray has been legitimately bad this season. I think that's fair to say. 23rd in EPA per play, 26th in CPOE. Now gets a Patriots defense that's pretty good against the pass. They rank 4th in EPA allowed per dropback, 2nd in dropback success rate allowed. They're also pretty good against the run, though. They rank 8th in EPA allowed per rush. So I think, we're probably going to see the Cardinals lean on the run a bit here, but it's unlikely that James Conner is going to be able to carry the offense in any real way. Running back 31 in rush yards over attempt is Connor. So kind of, I think, looking at probably an inefficient day for the Cardinals overall. DeAndre Hopkins is going to be dealing with double teams most likely. That's certainly the way the Patriots handled Justin Jefferson when they played him recently. But I mean, he's got a 31% target share, so you're powering through that. Marquise Brown, I think, is somewhat interesting. He had 97% route participation before the bye. He's looks like going to be the clear number 2. I think Rondale Moore, we're not sure about him yet, but seems like he's maybe not fully healthy.
He wasn't practicing yet. Greg Dortch has been back practicing too.
Yeah, they play Monday, right? So their Wednesday practice doesn't get any actual tags for it. But Rondale wasn't spotted out there. Dortch was. So I would guess it goes that way.
It's always Greg Dortch season.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think it might at least be condensed, to Brown and Hopkins. Trey McBride's not been able to earn any targets whatsoever, even though he's out there all the time. So I think you can kind of play your big 3 skill players here in Connor, Hopkins, and Brown. On the Patriots side, we've got missed practices for Jacoby Myers and Damian Harris today. Ramondre Stevenson looks like an absolute smash. He played 98% of the snaps against the Bills. He ran a route on 87% of dropbacks. That's the second highest route rate for any running back in any game all season. Only Christian McCaffrey has had a higher route rate than Ramondre Stevenson last week. The Cardinals are a pass funnel. That's actually good news for Ramondre Stevenson. They don't have any wide receivers that you're interested in. We just dump it down to Ramondre every play. That's all we want.
I will say about Ramondre, look, I'm not complaining. Okay, whatever I'm doing here, I'm not complaining.
I don't like the setup.
It seems like a setup for complaining.
I'm not complaining. All I would say is I would love it if Ramondre Stevenson could gain more than 3 yards on a reception. That would be cool. I would love to see it.
No,
hey, look, you just wait till they're down 14 in the fourth quarter. You'll get it.
That's not what he does, Denny.
I mean, you get 12 targets and he's a 32 receiving yards.
Well, a true PPR scam artist isn't going to – he's no wasted energy, no wasted motion. He just knows it's about the catch. Get the catch,
Let the man
go
play
down.
his game.
Get the catch, go down. That's a point. Doesn't matter the yards. Just don't worry about that. Get the point. Get the point. Get the point.
Yeah.
Ramondre understands the game. The New York Jets, who beat the Buffalo Bills in Week 9, now rematched with Buffalo and Buffalo. They are 10-point underdogs despite their recent revival under Mr. Michael White. Kyle, game script has necessitated 2 entirely different game plans through the first 2 Mike White starts. Take us through the state of the Jets for this big road underdogs.
Yeah, I mean, the Jets are just an infinitely better offense, even if, I don't think they're going to win a ton of games under Mike White, right? But they are an infinitely better fantasy offense and, in fact, a real-life offense under Mike White. They also have a neutral pass rate over expected over the past 2 weeks, like -1 is basically 0, which they were attempting to be a run-first team under Zach Wilson, which is not good, especially when you have extremely talented receivers, at least one, and a good you back up a good wide receiver 2-3 cast as well. So it works out perfectly for them because Mike White has a middling, not useless, but middling 7-8 on. So it's lots of high PPR stuff. They play faster under Mike White. They throw at a higher pass rate over expected. And then, of course, Garrett Wilson, when the offense is finally cooking, Garrett Wilson is just on another level. He leads the NFL in air yards, and red zone targets in the past 2 weeks. He is 3rd in total targets. I believe he's like the wide receiver 3 as well. He is like a true alpha stud, and this offense is putting more than enough yards on the board. They're averaging, it's 2 games, right? But the past 2 games, they're averaging like 470 total yards of offense, and that's a ton of that is going to Garrett Wilson. So he is like, I have him ranked. I think you could rank him as high as like 6, like the second tier of like the non-Justin Jefferson type players. Because after that, you can split ties between those guys. But 6 is probably where I'd say you'd cap out at ranking him. I think I have him like 7 or 8. He's awesome.
Man. Anything about Zonovan? Or you go, Pat.
I just want to point out that, we talk about PPR scams and everything. I would like to just point out Mike White's ADOT scam, which is to overthrow Garrett Wilson downfield on what could be touchdowns just to get that ADOT up. Don't hit the throw. Just get that ADOT up. That's all he's doing.
Again, these players are a lot savvier than you think.
And Mike White has definitely heard of ADOT.
Yeah,
he's definitely heard. I actually think he might have.
Something he knows about.
Kyle, can we trust – or is Zonovan Knight the Jets back to play if we have to play one? Again, they're 10-point road underdogs. Not usually when you would attack a committee backfield, but if you're playing a Jets back, is it Zonovan White? Michael Carter's off the injury report.
Yeah, Carter's off the injury report, but all the beats and the performance on the field have kind of confirmed that Zonovan Knight is the starting back. I think you would be rightfully concerned that Carter comes in and takes potentially a pass-catching role, but I think Knight has earned the job as the starter. And on this offense, even if they're losing, which obviously Vegas expects them to lose, they'll play fast, they'll pass a lot, there's checkdowns, lots of total yards en masse. I think you're fine to start Knight. Like, it's, of course, risky to start a 10-point underdog running back. But if I was picking between like him and whenever like the Broncos are 10-point underdogs, I'll take players on this offense, 10 times out of 10. This is a good, bad offense, not a bad offense.
Zonovan Knight is the RB26. I have my head of Devin Singletary. I don't know how I feel about that, actually.
I'm also fine with that.
We're going to find out about Devin Singletary here in just a second for Patrick Kerrane. We may have seen a changing of the guard in the Bills' backfield last weekend, Patrick. Was it real? Was James Cook out-touching, soundly out-producing, out-receiving, out-everything Devin Singletary real, or is it a one-game blip?
I think it was probably a one-game blip in the context of this week, where they played 3 games in 12 days, and in that third game, their promising rookie gets a lot more work, and Nyheim Hines sees his first work of since the trade. So to me,
don't worry, it was like 3 touches, I think.
But it was like 20% snaps or something. He
played a lot of snaps, but he literally had like 3 touches. I think it was like 2 receptions, like -1 yards or something. Or maybe I'm hallucinating. But
yeah, you're right. Sure, I meant work in terms of playing time, but
he was on the field. I don't know why I wasn't trying to even though I was trying to gotcha there. I wasn't trying to gotcha.
It was a fun gotcha. It was a fun little accusation to throw out. Casual.
Now I'm gonna have a coughing fit.
You know what? This one serves you right, okay?
It does.
Because I'm using the Nyheim Hines point to make a larger point, which is that we might not be able to trust the playing time from that third game. It might be a little bit skewed by the fact that those games are so tightly bunched. The snap shares, just for reference, 44% to Singletary, 43% to Cook, and 31% to Hines. That was a season high for Cook. But I mean, the guy looks great. So I'm not trying to downplay that. I'm not trying to downplay the idea that eventually, he could force like a true split or even force kind of what Rachaad White's doing in Tampa Bay, where it's like, this game he's playing ahead, then the next game he's kind of playing a little behind, and that type of like yo-yoing type of effect in a split backfield. I think we could be headed there. I'm just not really convinced that we're headed there this week. But, Cook, 2.15 yards per out run, that's an elite mark. A small sample, but I think he gives them something, I think, particularly in the passing game, also a little bit more explosive than Singletary. He's flashed a couple times in rush yards over expected per attempt, RB6 in week 11, RB12 last week. Singletary's been more successful, though, like a higher success rate, more consistent. So in games where they're going with more of like a power run game, I think we'll see both guys, but I don't think Singletary is going to go away in any real way. And I probably would have him ahead of a guy like Bam Knight because I think it's sort of similar, like probably somewhat of a split backfield, but you get the Bills offense as opposed to the Jets. The other thing about the Bills is that in 2 of the last 3 games, we've seen them shift to power personnel. Through week 8, they had 3 wide receiver sets, 11 personnel on 74% of their plays. They had that exact same rate against the Jets in week 9. They were even higher against the Vikings in week 10, but then in week 11 against the Browns, which are a run funnel and a very bad run defense, they dropped their rate of 11 personnel to just 49%. They went with a run-heavy -5% pass rate over expected. They shifted back to the pass against the Lions, shifted back to 3 wide receiver sets as well. But then against the Patriots, back to that power personnel with 11 personnel and only 53% of their snaps. So again, to about half from about 3/4. And they dropped to another run-first pass rate over expected of -3%. They're not exactly the Eagles in terms of their ability to kind of, shift to the power game, shift to the passing game, but maybe a little bit like what the Dolphins are sometimes doing, where they are taking advantage of plus rushing matchups to keep the defense on its heels a little bit more. This would be one of those matchups. The Jets rank 6th in EPA allowed per dropback, 18th in EPA allowed per rush. The Bills obviously struggled against them the last time they played. So I think we might get more of this like power run team version of the Bills. Now they don't go crazy. They're still like fairly balanced, but like this would not be a spot where I'd be touching Isaiah McKenzie. I think his routes might be limited. And I would be more inclined to go with the Singletary Cook. Like if I was breaking ties between like one of them and Bam Knight, I think I'm going with the Bills running back because I think there might be more touches in the backfield, more opportunity overall than we're used to.
My only take on James Cook is that the Bills, they kind of like the same thing they went through last year where they were like upset about not having a running game. And then down the stretch of the regular season, they really established Devin Singletary to try to have a running game going to the playoffs. I kind of wonder if they're trying to see what they have in James Cook heading into the postseason because they're tired of the horrible pass catching from Devin Singletary. No chunk gains, two things that James Cook has been doing. So I do sort of wonder if it's like maybe a changing of the guard afoot, but you just made a very, very convincing argument, and it's probably not.
I hope you're right. Like I hope that. I mean, it could be one of those things where like maybe they only played Cook more because it was the third game in 12 days. But then when Cook looks awesome, like does that change anything going forward? So I'm still bullish on Cook as we move forward into like the fantasy playoffs. I think he could be one of those guys. But this week, I don't know if I've seen enough to like fully trust it.
Darn, that's sad. Maybe I have to adjust my rankings actually. And I couldn't think of a good transition. We'll be right back after this. Just a reminder, if you don't have the NBC Sports Predictor app, go download it now. The contests are free and easy to play, and you have a shot to win thousands this weekend by predicting what will happen in college football, on the PGA Tour, and in the World Cup. There's also $100,000 up for grabs by guessing the outcome between the Dolphins and Chargers and our Sunday Night 7 contest. Download the Rotoworld app to receive breaking player news all season long. Stay ahead of the competition by favoriting players on your roster. Get the latest injury updates, player news, and much more delivered right to your phone. It's available in your app store today. Gotta be honest, weren't my best promo reads, but
wasn't one of your best transitions either, to be honest.
No.
We came off two heaters, frankly, but I think that momentum doesn't actually exist, right? Well, it's just random events.
You're human.
We've kind of alluded to it. I am playing hurt today from, I believe it's my 90th straight virus I've caught from my kids. And I was joking with Denny. I was like the classic, I haven't been sick in 20 years.
Right.
And then I had one kid, and then I upped it to 3 kids.
Right.
And then it's like a huge accomplishment if I haven't been sick in 20 days.
Right. 20 days, please. So 24 hours. And I'm like,
excuse me.
Sound great.
Yeah. Coming off 2 of Week 13's worst performances, the Jaguars and Titans meet up in Nashville. The Titans is 4-point home favorites. Denny, take us through the game. I don't know, 2 pretty boring teams.
Yes, but I'll say this. Ryan Tannehill is in a pretty good spot.
I'm going to just go ahead and mute him.
I will not have my mic cut. This is my First Amendment right.
Sorry. Ryan Tannehill in a good spot, even though Traylon Burks probably isn't playing for concussion. Curious.
This is protected speech, but why are you using it on this, man?
It's not up to you, okay? The Ryan Tannehill streaming talk is just as important as anything else, okay? It's per the Constitution. And look, the Jaguars just horrific in the secondary. I know Traylon Burks probably won't play this week. I get it, okay? But Jacksonville gets zero pressure on the passer. Has been picked apart of late. Only the Bears have allowed a higher dropback EPA than the Jaguars since week 7. Jacksonville is allowing the 10th highest rate of positive pass plays. So I think Tannehill is live as a streaming option to 12-team leagues. I'll say that. Okay. Also, Travis Etienne ran a route on 70% of the team's dropbacks in week 13. Caught 3 of 3 targets for not much, but the process. He's out there. He's running routes. That's all we can ask for at the moment. He's going against the Tennessee defense this week, giving up the most receptions to opposing running backs. So he has that going for him, folks. If they could check down to him a few more times, that'd be pretty awesome. And I wanted to mention a sicko tight end play because this podcast
he's not sicko. He's almost a tight end 1.
Right. This podcast would not be complete without one. So I don't know about his first name, but his last name is Okonkwo. He's the tight end 2-ish for the Titans at the moment.
The kids just call him Chig. It is a shortened version of his longer name.
Okay.
And by kids, you mean the announcers on every NFL broadcast.
That's also true. Yeah. They're terrified of pronouncing the full name.
Yeah, they are.
I'm glad. Yeah. Chig Okonkwo. I think a deeper streamer. He ran a route on a season high. 57% of the team's dropbacks in week 13, caught 4 or 5 targets for 68 yards. Look, he only has 81 routes on the season, but I do have to just get this in here because I did just a crazy amount of research on Okonkwo for some reason.
I did the exact same thing in the walkthrough.
No. You think you guys did research on Chig Okonkwo? He leads all tight ends in yards per reception. He leads all tight ends in yards per route run. He leads all tight ends in yards per target because he is that dude.
Well, what if I told you he's cleared 30 yards in 5 straight games?
Oh my God. Wow.
Hold the phone.
All right, I'm gonna have a coughing fit.
Yeah, yards per. If the Titans would like to use Okonkwo over Austin Hooper, one of the least effective tight ends in the NFL, that would be cool. I think for the
That would
team.
be really cool.
Lit, as the kids call it.
It would be litty.
Lit.
It would be lit. It's a 41 total in this game with 2 really, really bad pass defenses.
I know.
Other than that, though, who doesn't want to play Chig?
But it's a good game for sicko plays. I think
It is, and I'm saying I think the over stands no. I think the over is falling.
No, really?
Game.
Oh, I like the over.
These teams can't. I'm saying that's what I'm saying. I'm saying I like the over.
Oh, I see.
Like neither one of these teams can defend the pass. Derrick Henry, by the way, kind of doing the reverse. Derrick Henry, he's averaging just 2.77 yards per carry on 75 carries over the past 4 weeks. Not like the big dog who is usually gaining momentum, which is very real at this point of the season. So, well, good spot for the dog to start woofing again.
We talked about this pass defense. Maybe we should talk about the running back who leads all running backs in yards per route run. Noted pass catching specialist Derrick Henry.
Right, I mentioned that on Monday's podcast.
Yeah, it's because maybe you just throw the guy a screen or two.
Can we get like with Burks out? Maybe we do. Maybe we get 5 targets, something crazy like that.
I could totally see it.
Yeah, Henry in back-to-back seasons is having his best season in terms of just targets and catches per game. Like, it's not a ton, right? But it's clear that they're at least making some small effort as they have the most depleted, like, especially now with no Treylon Burks, just one of the most depleted receiver rooms. Like, we could actually see that. And the fact that Arthur Smith didn't decide to do this when he was with Tennessee shouldn't have been a concern at all.
I guarantee you with Derrick Henry, they're holding that lost fumble against him on one of his receptions while ignoring the fact that the fumble came after he ran 70 yards.
70 yards, yeah.
70 yards. And then they still covered it up for a touchdown anyway.
Yeah, so it worked out.
As someone who's already very in on Treylon Burks, did you guys see the video that was going around on Twitter where after he recovered that fumble?
No, I did not.
So he recovers the fumble. He's walking up. I think he still has the ball even. And Vrabel comes up to him and Burks says, "My fault. That was my fault." And Vrabel's like, "Why?" He's like, "That was my guy who went and punched it out."
Dude, Vrabel loved that.
The dog levels.
He loved it. He was like, "But you made up for it.
Vrabel.
You made up for it." He was so psyched.
I love that, and I'm not even a football guy.
Yeah,
it was really hard for me not to just burst into a dog impression. Which I
just rip it. Your sinus-infected dog impression.
I was this close to going to get my dog and forcing him to bark into my microphone. Yeah, that's
a pretty good dog impression.
I'm afraid to go full bore though.
You were gonna actually bark, but it's sort of like a timid dog.
Oh, I've got some really good ones, but I'm afraid, especially with my current cold, that I couldn't.
That's on the Patreon. If you sub to the Patreon,
yeah,
3 unstopped hours of barking. Different dogs, different breeds.
Just uncontainable dog levels from Treylon Burks. Adjusting to life
isn't playing.
That's a real shame. Adjusting to life without Jimmy Garoppolo, the 49ers welcome the Bucs to town along with a shockingly low total of 37.5, Denny. We'll begin with the Niners. We've already talked about it a lot this week. What is the fallout in the 49ers passing game from the transition from Jimmy Garoppolo to Brock Purdy?
Yeah, every time you say Brock Purdy, I think of his nickname. Don't look it up, folks. Look, this is good. This is good for Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel. I will say that. I'm not sure about Kittle and Ayuk, but last week, both Deebo and CMC saw 10 targets. Deebo had a 6.3 ADOT against Miami, pretty typical Deebo stuff. Also, Deebo hadn't seen 10 targets this season since week 6 against Atlanta. Okay, so it's been a long time since we've seen that sort of volume for Deebo Samuel. Good to see if you drafted him and kind of been getting through the wide receiver 3 season for Deebo. Purdy had the lowest ADOT, 5.4 of any quarterback in week 13. I think that should tell us that these short area targets should, continue. I mean, CMC's PPR prospects, it just becomes a complete cheat code at this point, I think. Only one of Purdy's 37 attempts last week went over 20 yards downfield. We're going to lots of dinking and dunking. You're starting Debo confidently. Ayuk did see 9 targets. So, he's not completely phased out. I don't know what to say about Kittle, man. I actually would I would start like Dulcich over Kittle.
So I don't even know why I wrote this question down and Denny just answered it. I was going to ask Kyle if we trust SF to keep feeding CMC. And yeah, there's just no reason that they wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, he is the ultimate challenge accepted coach. We thought that already before Jimmy Garoppolo got hurt, and then he did stop feeding CMC for like 2 games.
Yeah, I mean, since the second game, because you don't count the first game where he stayed in the Stanford apartments or whatever and showed up at the
should
Friday
have easily been able to play 100% of the snaps.
No, you don't count that game. Since the following game, he is the number 1 running back in total expected fantasy points. He's also the number 1 running back in receiving expected fantasy points. He was, in fact, the number 1 running back expected fantasy points last week with 8 targets. Certainly helps, and that ain't going nowhere. So, I mean, if they had like Elijah Mitchell, I would always be a little more concerned that a running back truly pitches in to at least make the carries 50-50.
It's still going to happen, but
it didn't happen last week. They gave Jordan Mason like 8 carries to CMC's 17.
But it's always weird though when it's like an in-game, like ad hoc kind of adjustment. And now when
Eli Mitchell didn't play
last
week, it wasn't in game.
Well, when Shanny has like a week though to go like big brain, like we lost our quarterback, got to get Jordan Mason in there. He's just dreaming about it, I'm sure, or maybe even Tevin Coleman. He's just dreaming about it, But anyways.
Well, one thing I would note is, in addition to coming off a season high snap share this week, McCaffrey, like Elijah Mitchell came back, right, and made it more of a split. But that week that I noted, that's the only week with a higher route rate than what Ramondre Stevenson just had, was week 11. That was one of the Elijah Mitchell weeks, and McCaffrey ran a route on 93% of dropbacks. So in terms of like being a part of the passing game, that part never went away, even when Eli Mitchell was being involved. So if the whole play here is reliant or very much powered by the fact that he's going to be this PPR cheat code, like I don't think that even Shanahan will galaxy brain his way off that.
Yeah, I mean, it's the difference between right now, the role we saw last week, he's the runaway RB1. I really don't think you could rank anyone else ahead of him. And if we saw Jordan Mason truly become Eli Mitchell and split 50-50, you could still tell me he's RB1. I really wouldn't bother to argue with it.
You said it's the difference. I thought you were saying it's the difference between right and wrong. Just do the right thing.
I'd argue that's a good also way to frame it, though. It would be wrong for Jordan Mason to see 16 carries, assuming McCaffrey doesn't see 30.
I can't even imagine the kind of thoughts that go through Kyle Shanahan's head, though. Like we're on the backup quarterback. Yeah, we don't want Christian to wear down. Like,
I will say, I said this last week. I said it last week, and you'll never believe how right I was. First touchdown, Kyle Juszczyk, Alex Ingold getting involved as well. I told you these two coaches wanted to use their fullbacks when they face each other, and guess what they did? They used their fullbacks.
Right, dude.
But I almost just started crying actually thinking about George Kittle. How did this happen?
He's done, yeah.
How did this happen to a man? Like they can have a 180-yard game. He can just like roll out of bed, have a 180-yard game, and this is how they use it.
He's gonna block good though. He's gonna block real good.
He's gonna block the hell out of it.
Him and Pitts, I think it's a cautionary tale moving forward about like how a tight end is going to be used. Pitts, jumped off the screen in every metric, but didn't do much for us.
Kittle's going to play every
the yards
snap.
And touchdowns metrics. Those metrics weren't so good.
Yes.
Kittle's going to play every snap this year when he's healthy. He's going to have 427 yards at the end of the year, and he'll still be the number 1 tight end in yards per route run. And no one will understand. Our greatest scientists will not get behind it.
They will not. Kerrane, what's going on with the Bucs receivers? It seems like Chris Godwin has moved ahead of Mike Evans from a usage perspective. Julio Jones kind of just hanging around as the number 3. Has Chris Godwin actually moved beyond Mike Evans? Mike Evans has looked very tired the past few weeks. Or Mike Evans and Tom Brady is overdue to finally kind of heat up their downfield connection. They actually almost did it one play against the Saints, I believe. But they couldn't quite hook up.
I think Godwin has moved ahead. On the season, Evans has slightly higher target volume per route. And he's still a deep threat. He's still the same guy, 14.1 ADOT. But his target rate of 19% is pretty unimpressive. And I do not think this is a great matchup to be targeting downfield receivers. The Buccaneers have been I shouldn't say very, but they've been clearly run first on first down. And their running game's bad. So they're just sort of burning first downs, which are very valuable downs. And it's, I think, setting up the offense very, very poorly. And it's, probably one of the reasons why the Buccaneers only really look good when they're in game-winning drive situations, because those are the situations where they can't run their offense the way they would like to, which is a bad way to run an offense. So I don't have really much faith in what they're going to do. They have a team total that's lower than the Broncos this week. 17 implied team total lower than the Broncos.
That seems a bit excessive.
Well, I don't think Vegas has lost their mind here.
Yeah, a bit excessive. By the way, it's just kind of like Todd Bowles just like refuses to cut, I don't know, maybe the greatest player in league history loose, where they finally had to go into Brady comeback mode, and he instantly wins the game.
He instantly moves the ball at will. They moved the ball at will. It wasn't even a contest. They looked like they could have scored 37 points in that game if they just would have done that. This is the most poorly run offense in the NFL.
Maybe don't ice out the coach that you won a Super Bowl with. I don't know. Does that seem like
I do think Tom Brady was the one who did that, though.
That's what I'm saying.
That's
what I'm saying. Don't ice out the coach, because then you might have a different coach who doesn't run the offense very well.
Be careful what you wish for. Yeah. Denny Kerrane alluded to the. Let me finish up, Pat.
Yeah, I just want to note on Godwin, his ADOT is down to 6.1, which is not just a career low, but crazy low. I mean, it's I don't know, I think lower than Cole Beasley. It's like Hunter Renfrow level. I mean, that's kind of what he is. It's just like an underneath dump off guy. He's not getting open. He rates very poorly in ESPN's open score. His lowest so he had a 7.6 ADOT last year, which was at that time a career low. He'd never been below 10 before that. I feel like this may be a sign. Brady has not played very well this year. I still think you should have him pass instead of running it, but it's probably a sign of maybe some decline from Brady, but also not a great sign for Godwin coming off this ACL. I still do think he's the best bet, but it's
we have lost Patrick Kerrane, which is a good time to ask Denny then about the Bucs backfield. He alluded to it. He said it's not good. I feel like it was maybe a bit harsh.
Yeah, it's horrible.
What? Rachaad White's good.
No, Rachaad White's not good. No.
No,
he's not. It's terrible. He's one of the least efficient running backs in the NFL, and Leonard Fournette's not better. He's worse. So they should never run the ball, is what I'm saying. Unfortunately, they will. But yeah, I mean, it's a pretty ugly split. Uncle Lenny saw 10 carries to 9 for Rachaad White last week against the Saints. Fournette ran more routes by a pretty good margin, but Rachaad White saw 7 targets, which was one more target than Leonard Fournette. Sorry, just got
very, very pained to say that.
One more
Stern
target
father reprimanding Leonard.
What were their split on game-winning catches?
1-0. So Rachaad White did get that.
Analytics.
I have to say, I saw Rachaad White interviewed after the game. They said, "How you feeling? We got catching a game-winning touchdown on Monday night from Tom Brady." He goes, "Man, I'm hungry."
You know why? He got that dog in him.
Yeah, he does have some dog. Yeah, I mean, I guess you could start both if you're, if you have them, you're probably starting.
Denny, there are 6 teams on bye.
Yeah,
I would say both are in the.
Yeah,
maybe so honestly, even
but it's a horrible spot. I mean, I would feel better about Rachaad White, I think, in this kind of atmosphere. I mean, hopefully, I don't think that we can have any hope because Byron Leftwich seems really intent on establishing it. And so, but if they do go pass heavy, that should be good for White.
It's a horrible spot, but I'm not so sure Brock Purdy's going to really be moving the 49ers offense against what remains a pretty solid Bucs defense. And maybe at least the play volume will be really high for the Bucs. And we get a lot of touches from both backs. I don't know. I mean, you shouldn't really be wanting to play them, but you're going to have to because there's 6 teams on bye. Kyle Dvorchak, the Chiefs get a road reset opportunity against the pathetic Denver Broncos. Give us the lay of the land in Denver.
Well, in Denver permanently is one of the worst offenses, not just in the NFL. They are literally the worst offense by points per game, but they also, if they keep this pace up, will go down as one of the 20 worst offenses in just points per game scored since the year 2000. So I would not be playing Latavius Murray no matter what percent of the touches he gets. It is, bar none, the worst offense. The Texans, better. The Rams, maybe better. You know, they've at least had a quarterback bolstering their stats early in the year, but they can't be that much worse. Literally, Broncos are one of the worst offenses in the past 20 some odd years. So wouldn't play Latavius. Courtland Sutton is very unlikely to play. Really would even be hard pressed to find that as a reason to play Jerry Jeudy. He'll see a lot of targets, but it's not like tight end where Greg Dulcich is the one exception I will make. They're using him like a receiver. They've talked about that, and his ADOT reflects that. It's tight end. It's a bad position. I'm comfortable playing him as a tight end one, but that tells you more about his position than it does for Jerry Jeudy, who his position has playable players. He maybe is playable without Courtland Sutton, but that feels like a bit of a stretch. Honestly, it's Greg Dulcich, and then you move on. Other side of the ball, Chiefs have had a 4% pass rate over expected since week 11. It's only a 3-game sample, but they were at 14 to start the year. I do believe some of that is matchup based. They've played really bad run defenses in that span, the Bengals and the Chargers. But the fact that they're a little more willing to ebb and flow with their opponents is not as much what we saw early in the year. So maybe they are at least trying to counter their opponents. But honestly, the best counter is just letting Mahomes drop back 50 times. Why would you? I get that the Chargers or the Bengals are not great run defenses, right? But they're facing Patrick Mahomes. They're going to look like bad pass defenses. Chiefs, they went less pass heavy when they played LA, who were a great, the other LA team, the Rams, less pass heavy or less run heavy, in that game because the Rams good run defense. Unfortunately, this week, the Denver, they're not like a bad run defense, but they're 18th in EPA per play, and they're a top 5 EPA per play team against the pass. So maybe for Chiefs standards, we do see a more balanced game script. I would frankly still project that like 4 to 5% pass rate over expected, but it's not quite the same team, at least on a small sample that we saw early in the year. And as far as the receivers go, it looks like it's back to normal. Juju got back up to an 80% route rate this past week. Before that, he was hardly running routes in his first game back from a pretty brutal concussion. I think we're past that, and it is the standard, unless we get Kadarius Toney back this week, but even then, he probably is just that third tertiary type option. It is the standard. MVS runs 80% routes. Juju runs 80% routes. Then they have a third guy who's really not predictable.
I think you basically described a game where the Chiefs cover 9.5, but they don't do it to like the final 5 minutes of the game. And it does feel like a game they're kind of just going to slog through, especially since it's on the road.
And that final touchdown goes to Noah Gray. You're sitting there, You're trying to make the playoffs. You've got Juju, right? He's running all the routes again. He's 6 for 60 and no touchdowns. Come on, just get one in. That's all I need. And Jody Fortson goes out and catches a pass from Noah Gray, right?
From Noah Gray. I'm a little bit more bullish on this game just because I do feel like we know where the targets are going a little bit more. Your Juju point, he's back up. We at least have one guy we feel okay about on the Chiefs side in terms of the wide receivers. And then if you're not starting Jerry Jeudy in the spot, why have you been holding him?
You should have been holding him. That's the answer. You should not have been holding him.
But I think this is a fine spot to start Jerry Jeudy. I think he's a solid-ish flex. The thing that's interesting about him is that his ADOT is higher than Courtland Sutton's this season. So you think about
Sutton he's washed, unfortunately. He was one of those guys who was all physicality before he got hurt. Kind of one of those guys who couldn't afford to lose a step or two.
I think playing for the worst offense in the NFL may have contributed a bit to his stats not looking good.
Not helping.
Yeah, but I do think if you're taking out deep routes from Sutton, you actually Jerry Jeudy is a guy who can help replace those. He's been running downfield this year, and Greg Dulcich as well. I think Greg Dulcich is a pretty solid start here with Sutton out.
What a surprise.
Yeah, I know. I
really like
Greg Dulcich.
He is. He's top 8 this week at tight end.
For sure. So we have 2 startable Broncos this week?
We do.
That's a lot of Broncos.
I disagree that we have 2. I flat out disagree.
Really?
Well,
Jerry Jeudy startable. Come on.
You guys hear
startable, sure.
One of Denny and I's galaxy brains, we may have taken the over on Russell Wilson's 0.5 passing touchdowns, by the way.
Hammering the over.
Yeah, hammering the over. Some of us may even said he might throw 2 touchdowns. So it's going to be a real big week.
Wow.
Kyle, did we mention Latavius Murray? Do we need to?
I did, and I said you don't play him because he's a member of the Broncos.
Yeah, that works.
I'm in agreement there.
I don't get the Latavius hate. He plays every snap. He gets all the touches.
Who cares? He plays for the
He
Broncos.
Actually didn't play. He didn't play every snap. He was down.
No, he didn't play every snap.
66.
He's a little Mike Boone.
The man named Michael Boone.
Mike Boone is a myth. Come on.
But I mean, you can't lose 25% of the snaps if you're Latavius Murray. You're done.
Absolutely.
You already stink. You're already on the Broncos.
Wow, man, tough scene.
6 teams on bye.
There are 6 teams. Yeah, I mean, he's easily a top 30 back, Pat. I'm sorry.
You can start Latavius Murray this week. Just know I really pray for your 3-9 team or whatever you're at. Good luck.
Wow, dude.
Thanks. Too real. Kerrane, the Panthers and Seahawks are meeting up in Seattle. This is a down low, good game. The Panthers have looked a lot feistier since they fired Matt Rule. The Seahawks do not play with good defense. What's the lay of the land here?
Nope, not a good game. You've been broken by the 6 teams on bye. Yeah. This game's not good at all. No, it's whatever. Darnold, he was pretty solid last week.
Ugh, cut his mic. I hate. Don't usually have to cut Crane's mic, but cut his mic.
Look, I mean, he was pretty solid last week, but the Panthers coaches, they did not trust it. To their credit, they went with a season low -23% pass rate over expected on first down. That's how you really hide a quarterback. I mean, this is borderline Malik Willis level kind of. We're not passing it. 21% overall pass rate over expected. That actually isn't their lowest of the season. Wow. This team under Wilkes has desperately been trying to hide the pass.
Oh no, we have lost Crane.
And Rotopad is muting himself as well. I watched this game, so I can at least. I watched the game he was referencing. Darnold, like you said, played well-ish, right? A lot of emphasis on the ish, and they were hiding. They were clearly hiding him. I think you're fine enough playing Deonta Foreman this week. He's still dominating the work, and he runs a decent amount of the routes, but he just doesn't get targeted when he runs routes. That's just not what he does. So you are kind of sweating out the touchdown or the long run.
Denny, I think you had some sicko opinions on the Seahawks backfield where Ken Walker appears to be out with an ankle injury. DJ Dallas, I think, is also going to be out with an ankle injury. Kind of comes down to Travis Homer and Tony Jones. Tony Jones looked like he did not belong on an NFL field last week.
Right.
What's our sicko opinion on the Seahawks backfield?
I don't think you're playing any of them with confidence if Walker is out, but I do think that DJ Dallas would be the top option. Because
I think he's not though. Is this my early lead?
He did. I do not believe he practiced to start.
He did not practice on Wednesday, no.
And the only reason he even played through his injury last week is because they didn't have Travis Homer active, knee and illness. I'm not sure which one is the one kept him out. And then Ken Walker gets hurt. He gets listed as doubtful and plays. Who plays through doubtful? I'll tell you who.
Yeah,
it's the guy who's Tony Jones is going in if he cannot come back.
Ken Walker got hurt, and then Tony Jones basically got like a concussion evaluation, like right after they announced DJ Dallas is doubtful. So they're not going to make Ken Walker play through a questionable tag, but they'll make DJ Dallas play through a doubtful tag. Is kind of what happened there.
Look, if you're thinking about playing one of these guys, play Latavius Murray.
Man,
I agree.
Man,
I play Travis Homer over him.
No, that's just not correct. Play Latavius.
Totally disagree.
He's going against the Chiefs and catch a couple dump offs. Latavius is terrible, but
so all of a sudden you're a Latavius stan. You disappear from the stream and come back a Latavius stan.
Denny was in my ear the whole time.
I know it's a lot of people listen to this on podcast stuff, but you did briefly disappear from the stream, and you have a Latavius Murray Broncos jersey on.
Yeah, that's very curious.
It is
very, very, very curious.
Yeah, my internet's really been acting up today. I don't know if I should jump back in on the Panthers passing game if you guys will allow that, but
briefly,
I did want to mention that DJ Moore, I think, also very solid. I mean, I might even call him a wide receiver 3, not even a flex, just throw him in the old regular wide receiver spot. Leads the NFL with a 45% air yard share. Could be.
I believe. I don't think he's cleared 6 targets in like over a month.
Air yards though. The targets travel far.
No, just air yard share too, not actual.
Yeah,
air yard share.
Right. The actual 45% of the Panthers' air yards is 29 yards.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, he hasn't cleared 6 targets since week 8. Yikes! So. And Patrick is frozen again. It's a good time to move on to Bengals-Browns. The Browns arrive in Cleveland as nearly touchdown underdogs against the ascending Browns. I don't know why I wrote that. They're not ascending.
No,
I meant the ascending Bengals is what I meant to write. Yeah, I'm Ron Burgundy, ? Kyle, it was a rough return for Deshaun Watson in week 13. Are we kind of just throwing that game in the trash can? Hadn't played in 2 years, hostile environment, not fun to talk about, et cetera, et cetera.
Was it a hostile environment? I know I heard there were boos and whatnot, but were there more than 50 people there?
They were accused of pumping in artificial boos.
Yeah, that's true. I did see that. And look, I Wouldn't shock me if they did that, but that really shouldn't rattle a professional quarterback paid many dozens of millions of dollars to hear a few speakers yell boo. And we saw last week with Sean Watson, it was literally his worst game ever by some metrics. It was his worst start in his career at a 3.9 adjusted yards per attempt. His passing yards were the second worst in a start. And the Browns, I think this is both game planned and probably in-game responding to how bad Watson was playing, had a negative 17% pass rate over expected. They are a run-first team, obviously, and they maybe even will. They probably will be so, frankly, with Deshaun Watson, but that is still a crazy number. And this week, I know, it was probably, it was literally Deshaun Watson's worst career game ever. I don't expect that to be the Watson we see going forward. But in a spot where teams have universally decided to run against the Bengals, they're, I believe, top 6 in run rate over expected, bottom 6 in pass rate over expected. Teams generally do see their weak run defense and choose to exploit them that way. The Browns did the last time they played them, a negative 15% pass rate over expected. I think at a minimum, Watson bounces back by efficiency because you can't get lower. But I'm not sure the volume really takes a tick up in terms of the overall split of the run and the pass in this game. The Browns are a run-first team with a quarterback who struggled in his first game, and they face a run-funnel opponent. It doesn't take much to put these puzzle pieces together.
Yeah, it seems like it's going to take a while for them to settle on a new offensive identity because 11 games with Jacoby Brissett, they had a formula going. It was working more often than you would expect. And now this is kind of all about, I guess, probably figuring out their offense for 2023 at this point.
If I could do something we never do on the show and recommend that folks try to, go out and get the Bengals defense this week, if you're hard up for a streamer, because if the Browns are forced to throw, if they can't do what Kyle said they want to do, obviously, and establish it, they're going to have to drop back a lot. The Bengals have been really stingy through the air recently, second lowest rate of positive pass plays this season. And they're getting good pressure on the passer week in and week out. So Watson in the passing game are going to be in a world of hurt. I think the Bengals defense is pretty sneaky.
Yeah, this is the first ever streaming defense recommendation on the show. We should maybe do that more often.
I'm thinking we might be losing that position. I think these coming for defenses got kickers out of most leagues.
Kyle, the first time the Browns and Bengals played, it was kind of like a shocking exposure for the Bengals. It was their first game without Jamar Chase. The passing attack just looked totally discombobulated. People were truthing Joe Burrow like, oh, it turns out it's Jamar Chase after all. What about that? What do you guys think? And then Joe Burrow immediately settled in and played really good football until Jamar Chase returned last week. Do we see anything interesting with the Bengals receiver usage with Chase back? He immediately resumed alpha duties, I know. What do we see with the Bengals receivers and Jamar Chase's return?
Yeah, shockingly, as someone who may have sacked a little bit of this game in DFS, it wasn't the super high-scoring, super pass-heavy affair we saw. So, the volume overall was depressed, but his 8 targets, his 67 air yards, both led the team, took the field for 82% of their snaps, a 797 line. He was the Chase of old. It just wasn't a 360-yard Burrow game, so it didn't expand upon that pie. But I think it's very clear he came back and immediately is the alpha, both in terms of his talent, which is clear, but also they did not limit his role in any way, really. So it's Chase top 5 season again.
I put him back in the top 5, and maybe speaks to the virtue of just hold a player out a week longer than you think you should. So many times they rushed them back, and the practice reports for Chase just were not great in week 12. I think he was still kind of like limping a little bit, even though they wanted him to return that week. They held him out an extra week, and then he looks like Jamar Chase in week 13. Maybe just let your players get healthy. And I don't know why I'm so obsessed with the notion. It just always annoyed me so much when the Bengals have 2 number 1 receivers. Isn't that kind of crazy, guys?
Pretty cool.
But this then they don't though, because
they have a number 1 receiver in the NFL, a top 5 number 1 receiver, and then they have another receiver who would be the number 1 receiver on a lot of teams. He won't be the number 1 receiver on the Bengals.
I just thought about T. Higgins on the Chargers and got really sad that he's not on the Chargers.
Oh baby, he would be the number 1 by a country mile on that team.
Yeah,
I really wish he was on the Chargers. Denny, do we expect a normal workload for Joe Mixon, who kind of had a slower than expected return from his concussion? It seemed like he was going to play in week 13. Speaking of extra weeks, he got an extra week to heal up. Yeah. He has been cleared for week 14. What do we expect between Joe Mixon and Samaje Perine?
Well, Mixon has 2 things working against him, maybe 3. He has the brain injury, of course. Samaje Perine has been really good, like one of the best running backs in the NFL.
Nearing a mic cut.
What? He has been. If you look at
just
all
not fun though.
The peripherals, he has massive levels of dog too.
He does have a lot of dog levels. That actually is undeniable.
I mean, that guy humiliates defenders, and he doesn't even make a big deal out of it. He just like runs you over and then goes back to the huddle.
Yeah, I mean, that is uncontainable dog levels.
Yeah, crazy dog. So maybe P. Ryan has carved out something of a role for himself in Mixon's absence. Maybe they're gonna ease Mixon back in. Also, Chase is back, and Mixon's role really shifted with Chase out. Mixon had his monster, 5-touchdown game with Chase out of the lineup. If you look down, his target share really spiked in most of the weeks that Chase was out with that hip injury. So Chase back, Samaje Perine showing what he could do, Mixon's brain injury. It all says to me, to answer your question, no, I don't think that he will have a big workload coming into this week.
Man, the Zoomers will never believe that Joe Mixon had a 5-touchdown game. And they kind of alluded to this, by the way, in like their comments this week, where the Bengals media was kind of prodding Joe Mixon. Like, you think Samaje Perine will remain more involved? And I think he was like bristling a little, but then kind of admitting that he was going to.
I don't really see how they can just say, all right, Samaje, you're back on the bench.
I don't know. They did it for the first 12 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, once the fur starts to fly, a lot of times, they just kind of fall back into their old habits. But
maybe
it is a week 14 storyline to keep track of. Denny, last game, Texans, Cowboys, 17.5-point favorites for Dallas, the biggest spread of the entire year. From my note, will the Cowboys entertain us? Or are they just going to do like the brick wall thing, like where like even like Malik Davis gets 10 carries? What's going on?
Yeah, I was going to say, obviously Pollard is an elite play. Ezekiel Elliott, this is the last time we'll be able to say this ever in Ezekiel Elliott's career. He is an elite play against this Houston defense. And so you have to keep going down the line. Is Malik Davis an elite play against this Houston defense? Because they're going to run it so much. The Texans are like there's the second most extreme run funnel defense in the NFL. The Cowboys, since Dak has been back, have really leaned on the run against bad rush defenses. And with the lead, they're 100-point favorites here, give or take. Look, you're starting CeeDee Lamb. I think I had this question on the stream, on my Tuesday stream. Do I start Dak or do I go with someone like Trevor Lawrence or Ryan Tannehill? You start Dak and you hope he gets there before things get really out of hand. Okay. And that didn't work out with Tua, by the way, a few weeks ago against Texans. Did not, you started him. He got, 11 points and then he got pulled. So that can happen here, but I still think you're starting Dak.
But so you kind of mentioned like the Dak conundrum. I know. So I looked up with CeeDee Lamb. Like they're having so many of these games, and they're huge favorites. They're blowing teams out. The Cowboys have won by more than one score 6 times, and CeeDee Lamb has posted more than 8 targets only 1 time in those games.
Right,
like, just not getting the volume, and these games aren't close. And he is a floor play. He's getting like his 5 catches for 70 yards in almost every one of these games. He did that against the Colts in the 54-19 victory. But with CeeDee Lamb, even though it's just like a total eruption spot, you're basically just banking on floor, I would have to say.
Yeah, that's what it is here. Also, Brandon Cooks reportedly will not play this week against Dallas.
Yeah, Kyle, catch us up on because you seem to have the dope on the Texans receivers.
Yeah, they're not going to be good. It's going to be ugly because Nico Collins back-to-back DNPs. Doesn't look like he's going to play with a foot issue. Obviously, Brandon Cooks, as Denny said, ruled out. I mean, Philip Dorsett actually led the team in routes last week, but Chris Moore was the one seeing more work of him and Philip Dorsett. I mean, they're both like mega cheap on DraftKings. You can play them there, but it's like the thing I said about Latavius Murray in that if you are looking this deep for these players, pack it up. You don't need such a lineup this week. It's fine.
You almost sent me into a coughing fit. I mean, that seems a little morbid.
You're telling me you believe someone starting Philip Dorsett this week has a chance to be a successful fantasy football playoff team?
Not in redraft. No. What about DFS? We getting sick?
Yeah, they're like 3K and 3,400. So you could start them.
Oh yeah.
You guys are both. Just be real. You're going to both have Chris Moore and Philip Dorsett in DFS.
Absolutely.
I already have one Chris Moore lineup actually made. That's not a joke.
I'm gonna have more a lot. Yeah,
you're fired, both of you. Kerrane has been fired. Apparently, he's gone from the podcast. He's been big. Latavius got to him. They whisked him out of his apartment.
I've never wanted a player to go off more than I want Latavius Murray to go off this week.
Kerrane, he seems like he's in a lot of trouble. He came at the wrong running back, so he's not here to finish the show. But check out Patrick Kerrane's walkthrough, which drops every Friday. Check out his chat, 1 p.m. Eastern on Friday with Kyle Dvorchak, right, Kyle?
Yes, sir.
Denny, your funnels thing.
My funnels thing. Right? It'll be up on the website, NBCSportsEdge.com tomorrow.
Kyle has his 32 stats. I have my rankings. We have all of our podcasts from this week. A lot of good stuff. Keep it locked to the news to the website for news. A lot of big injury week. So for the absent Patrick Kerrane, for Kyle Dvorchak, for Denny Carter, I'm Patrick Daugherty. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back later.